So friends, I'm going to invite people to get their coffee and their juice and their water and their cake. Don't miss the cake. And then we'll gather up in just a moment and hear from Bishop Rodman. Oh, I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I am delighted to see the good use of our composting station up here. So your plates and your cups are compostable, and your metal forks can go on one of the white trays up here on the right so that we can wash those forks. Welcome to the Chapel of the Cross, and welcome most especially to Bishop Rodman, who serves as our diocesan bishop of the Diocese of North Carolina. Yes, we can clap for him. Thank you. And this is a joyous time that we're welcoming those newly baptized, those who are confirmed, will be confirmed, or received or reaffirmed their baptismal vows. And our ministry that we have as a parish is intimately connected to that of the diocese, not only because we are part of the diocese, but also because we carry out university and young adult ministry on behalf of the whole diocese, right inside our building and out into the campus that surrounds us. So I'm going to turn the mic to Bishop Rodman and allow him to offer us reflections, and I think he'll also welcome questions.
Definitely.
And yes, and I'll be a mic runner for you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Elizabeth Marie, and it's great to see you all this morning. Thanks for sticking around a little bit longer after the service for those that were at the 9, or maybe some of you are coming later to the 11:15. Beautiful service, wonderful celebration, confirmations, baptisms, lots of energy and spirit and excitement. And we ran a little long. The sermon might have been a little long. Sorry about that. But I'm glad you're here. And I want to say just a few words about me briefly, but more importantly about the mission that we share, and then make some connections to things that are happening here at Chapel of the Cross, and then invite your questions. And because we got a late start, I'm going to keep an eye on the clock, and Elizabeth Marie will keep me honest as well. But I think we can go till about 11 before we get ready for the next service. So I've been serving now as your bishop here in North Carolina for 6 years, and I love this diocese. I love being in a different congregation every Sunday, which was something that I had a little bit of experience in before coming here when I was serving. My last service in the Diocese of Massachusetts before becoming your bishop was working on the staff of the Diocese of Massachusetts. And I was out and about in congregations, really working on 2 initiatives for our bishop in the beginning of my service, Tom Shaw, who was notable. He served as a bishop for 20 years, which is a fairly long tenure in this day and age. And he was also a monk. He was a member of the Society of St. John the Evangelist. And some of you may remember that they used to have a chapter house in Durham, but they are based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And he asked me to do some work around global mission partnerships with our congregations and congregational collaboratives locally in the Diocese of Massachusetts, which is basically the eastern third of the diocese. And I loved that work. I came to appreciate, as I do with you all, that every congregation has its own history, its own culture, its own personality, and its own style. And there's a richness in that that is a part of the life that we share as a diocese. And it's my joy to experience that in different ways every Sunday. But we do have a focus to our mission, and the focus is around 5 areas of priority. And some of these will not be new to you. You'll recognize some of them because they were important to this diocese before I got here. Some also connect to what Bishop Curry is inviting us to do in the whole Episcopal Church, but they seem to be the right focuses for our energy and missional action and efforts at this time in the life of the Diocese of North Carolina. And as I said, there are 5, and sometimes with a list, I'll say in no particular order, but in this one, the order actually does matter a little bit. The first priority that we have as a diocese is racial reckoning, justice, and healing. And that is something that you all here at Chapel of the Cross have been engaged in all kinds of ways in the time that I've been here and that we've been paying attention to that priority. You've done work around your history. You've had conversations in small and large groups. The last time I was here pre-COVID, I did a forum where we actually talked about that focus of your work. And I'm grateful that you have embraced that as a part of what it means to understand not just your history, but your identity, and also the ways in which we may want to learn from our history and change the way that we've done things. And this is work that the diocese is doing as well in terms of telling our own story more honestly and more fully and more completely. And we're asking our congregations to pay deeper attention to this. Our focus for convention, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, is one of our other priorities, which I'll say a bit more about shortly, formation. But we are also rolling out as part of our formation offerings an opportunity for congregations to take a closer look at their history as part of the conversation around what does the church mean by reparations and restitution, and what might that look like. And we're at the front end of that process, but it's a crucial part of the work is to have this hard conversation. And we have actually, as you may know, this past spring, called a new canon to serve in our diocese, and her name is Lindsay Ardrey, and she's canon missioner for reparations and restitution. But what she's going to roll out is a curriculum that is designed to meet congregations where you are. So if you've never had this conversation, there's one starting point and one way of entering into this work that will begin that conversation with your congregation. If you've been doing the work and are ready to go deeper, there's another pathway. If you've done a lot of work already and you're actually interested in beginning to formulate some responses, there's a third pathway. And so that's by design. We're obviously not taking a one-size-fits-all approach, but we deeply believe that this is the time for us as a diocese to engage more fully and more deeply in this work. Our second priority is around vital congregations, and that encompasses all our congregations, but we also know that some of our congregations are experiencing vulnerability. They're at risk. Sometimes that's because there have been demographic changes around them or economic changes, forces that they have no control over but have directly impacted their membership and their attendance. On top of that, the last 3 years of a pandemic have really actually made that challenge even more complicated for some of our vulnerable congregations. So our priority as a diocesan staff is to give special attention and resourcing to our congregations that are most vulnerable right now, because we want to continue to support them in their mission, and we want them to continue to be a part of our diocesan family. The reality of focusing on the most vulnerable is a deeply held gospel value that we believe is an operating principle in the way that Jesus taught and lived. And so we're trying to incarnate that and demonstrate that in our relationship with our congregations. The third priority is collaboration. And one of the lessons that we've been learning in this diocese, and not just in our congregations, but even with our diocesan staff, is that while we deeply believe in the principle of collaboration, it's hard work. And it's not easy. It's not only hard work, it's not enjoyable sometimes, because it means exercising different muscles. And I think sometimes when we hear collaboration, we think of compromise, and they are related, but they're not the same. And collaboration requires actually a different set of eyes and a different set of assumptions. And it actually means sometimes setting aside privileges that we bring to the table and starting the conversation in a different place. So it's related to the work we're doing around race and reckoning and history. It's definitely something that we know needs to be a part of the life of every vital congregation, and we know it's hard work. And we are doing this work alongside you, and it's a good thing we're doing this work alongside you because we want to support you in this work. And so you need to know that the team of diocesan staff is living into this challenge with you and definitely knows what the terrain and the landscape is like. And I think that's better preparing us to help you as you look at partnerships in the community, ways that you want to serve with others. And you all are deeply involved in collaboration already. Your interfaith association, your partnership with El Buen Pastor, learning Spanish from them, teaching English to them, that give and take is all a part of deeper efforts around collaboration that we're living into. The fourth priority I mentioned earlier is formation. It's the focus of our convention in November. The theme for convention is throughout all generations. All Saints' Day is a good day to kind of lift up that understanding that we are connected to those that have gone before us. We're also connected to those who will come after us. That's what the communion of saints means. That's probably a deeper expression of collaboration in the spiritual sense. So these all tie together and are related. But throughout all generations is also an acknowledgement that formation is often done best when it's done intergenerationally. We have much to teach each other across the generations, even within our own congregations. And we want to lift up opportunities where we're sitting together, young and old alike, looking at the invitation of Scripture, the prayers in the prayer book, the history of our church, and the opportunities for mission that we're called to in this day and in this time, looking at that together as part of our formation, as part of what it means to become disciples making a difference, as that prayer said. So deep formation is central to where the church is growing right now, and we're prioritizing that in the life of the diocese. The last priority is creation care, and I think we're all aware of the need and the necessity given the challenges in our climate and in our planet, on our planet right now. And so we are embracing and lifting that up. That's also, along with racial reconciliation and justice and evangelism, the other priority for the Episcopal Church is creation care. So we are definitely in partnership with the wider Episcopal Church and with the intention of Bishop Curry in creation care. We don't view this as a political position or statement at all. We deeply believe that this is part of our call as disciples of Jesus and as stewards of creation to take better care of our planet. And the challenges are numerous. We're engaging in all kinds of ways. I know that is a part of your work already as well. And so I'd love to hear, at this point, I'm going to stop talking. I'd love to hear ways that you feel personally connected to any of these priorities, or that you know that Chapel of the Cross is connected to these priorities, and you want to share a story about that. Because we are very interested in lifting up the stories across the diocese where this work is happening. And one other principle that's operative in this mission strategy that I want to underscore, something that was also I shared in the sermon. You don't have to do all these things. Pick one. Pick one for yourself, pick one for your parish. Listen to the Spirit moving in you and discern where your gifts are being called to be offered. So, enough from me. Love to hear from you all. And if you don't want to talk about priorities, but you want to ask me a question, that's allowed too. Especially with COVID, some of my time with you has been greatly interrupted. And I always value the opportunity to connect pastorally and to answer questions about anything that you might want to ask me as your bishop. So, have at it.
I'm looking for a hand. Sankey, let me bring you the microphone.
Okay, thank you.
I know you think we can all hear you, but we can't.
Back in the 70s and 80s, I was shocked to see that the population of Episcopalians had basically been cut in half. What we were in the 70s, there were only half of us left in the 80s. What is important in all these things for us to think about, in my view, is growth as a community growth. And how's it going? My big question, how's it going in the diocese? Are we growing or not?
So the short and honest answer is we are not growing. And as you probably know, neither is the Episcopal Church across the country, and also we have 16 foreign countries. I should note that in some of the other countries, the church is growing. But we're not alone in the Episcopal Church either. So I'm not happy about this, but we are, for better or worse, we have company. I guess misery loves company in this particular instance. But all mainline denominations are seeing the same kind of drop. And that curve hasn't really gotten any better in more recent decades. So the question then becomes, what do we want to do about that? And I believe that we're in the process of turning the corner on that, but COVID was not a help. I will give you some numbers in a minute, because I think if you ask the question about growth, you need to hear some numbers. But before I do that, I just want to say that, and I use this image a lot because it's been very helpful to me at different levels of my leadership in the life of the church. Progress is not a straight line, ever, in any context. And I think it's better described as something that looks like this. So that you go through cycles. And at certain parts on the cycle, as you're moving forward, it actually appears you're going backwards, right? As if you're on the back side of the curve. And I would argue that we're in a big loop right now, and so we're on a big backside. It's going to take a while to turn that around. One of the keys is what Elizabeth Marie referred to a moment ago when she was just talking about your life together here, which is having outside eyes, which means it doesn't mean, it sometimes means coming into a system with a different perspective. But the way I'm using it now is actually from your perspective as Chapel of the Cross here in Chapel Hill, look out, look around you. You got great windows in this room. I think they are a reminder, and you are already doing this work, but more and more, the way that we are going to grow is by looking outward and connecting with the community around us. The other thing that seems to be definitely attached to our growth is owning some of the gifts that we bring as a denomination. Our love of liturgy is not actually just for ourselves, it's a gift to the world, and we don't always remember to lift that up. And liturgy is the way that we not only celebrate the gospel promises, but it's also, liturgy for us is a way that we're formed. And again, I deeply believe that as important as Scripture is in forming and shaping us for the mission that we're called to, our liturgy is a partner in that. And we need to lift that up in different ways. And as we begin to expand the way that we worship and what's included in our prayer book, I think we will be better positioned to invite people in. The last thing I want to say, and it's not evangelism is not listed as one of our priorities, but I would argue that evangelism is the undercurrent in all of this. And evangelism for us really means not just telling the story, but inviting people in. Our motto, as long as I've been alive, and I think well before that, the Episcopal Church welcomes you. That warms my heart. I love that. I grew up with that. And as I look around in the church generally, not the churches of our diocese specifically, if we were honest, we would say that sign should read, "The Episcopal Church wonders where you are." We do. We sit around and we just kind of wonder why no one's found us. It's because we haven't told them. We need to be a little less shy about who we are and what we have to offer. Back to the numbers, and then, because this is a long answer to a great question. I'm going to speak, mostly the way we track numbers is through parochial reports. When I started serving as your bishop, we were just around 50,000 members. We're now around 46,000. Some of that loss was due to COVID. A more important number sometimes to track, not at the expense of membership, but especially post-COVID, is what is happening with our average Sunday attendance. And as you might expect, in 2021, there was a huge drop, in part because the pandemic, as you know, started in the spring of 2020. And for the year of 2020, our average Sunday attendance on parochial report, we were told to just put down the first 10 or 12 Sundays until you shut down. That was our average Sunday attendance for the year. So in 2021, they said, give us your real numbers. Well, you know what happened with that. So we saw a 50% drop in average Sunday attendance in 2021. That was not a surprise to me as your bishop, but it's something I watched closely and carefully. My presumption was that it was that steep for us, and steeper than some other dioceses, because we took a one-size-fits-all approach to when congregations could be open and how many could be present. And we extended in caution those restrictions a lot longer than most other dioceses. So the key becomes, so what happens in 2022? And in 2022, and those numbers are just out, our average Sunday attendance bounced back by 35%. Now that's not all the way back, but that to me is an indicator that now we're actually about where everybody else is, because everybody lost about 15% during COVID. So it means that we're at a place where we can do the work that we've been called to do. So that's, sorry for the long answer. Hope that helps. Other questions? I promise not to.
Well, I want to amplify something you were saying about inviting. You know, our theme for the year for our programmatic work is out of John's Gospel, come and see. And it's that act of invitation, of Jesus' first invitation to his initial disciples. I'm trying not to cough into the microphone. We have like one more. Okay, Sid is coming.
Very quick, just another number, Bishop. I learned as part of our canvas this year that last year we had online 32,000 people, groups, tuned in Chapel of the Cross in 1 year.
That's fantastic.
32,000, all over the country.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Thank you, Sid, and thank you for mentioning that, because those numbers, even in 2021, they did do a separate count of how we were tracking online participation. And when you add those numbers back in, our numbers are better. They did not this year, for some odd reason, ask us to, when I say this year, in 2022, they did not ask for the online numbers. I still don't know why. I think it's important to include those in the outreach and the impact that we're having. So, great. We might have time for one more quick question.
Vivian?
This is maybe a little less of a question and more of a comment, but like I've known some young people who have become Christians through the ECM program and who have gotten very involved. And I don't know, to me, nothing gives me more hope for the future of the church than the fact that there are still a lot of folks who do seem to be, even as some people are heading out, there are people heading in and finding like great treasure here and connection to Jesus and all our wonderful tradition. So I also do think that there's like very real hope that there's still people finding great value here.
Thank you. I like that comment. I appreciate the hopefulness in that. Wednesday, or right at the beginning of Lent in the spring, and really enjoyed that.
Strother. Last one.
And in the spirit of collaboration, I'd like to mention an example of something in response to the bishop's invitation, but perhaps someone else here would be better positioned to describe it for him. In response to the diocesan themes, many people in this parish were very involved in supporting a housing development that was proposed to the town council and sponsored by St. Paul's AME Church, which was also mentioned during today's announcements. And a big delegation from this parish went a couple of times to town council in support of that. So, which I think hits on several of the themes that you mentioned. If somebody else would like to describe it for the bishop.
No, thank you.
As good work that's going on.
Absolutely.
Under the auspices of Chapel of the Cross.
And Elizabeth Marie had alerted me to that this fall, and I was asking her about it just before we started. So that is a great example and incarnation of the kind of collaboration that we need.
Who knew town council meetings could go till like 11:15 at night? It's very late.
Well,
you go ahead.
Just thank you all. It's really joy to be here. I'm glad to have some time. I'm sorry it was a little shorter, but appreciate your questions and your participation and enthusiasm for the work that we share and for the love of Jesus. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Rodman.